that you ought to have a scheme against him. Y'all, we got to have a plan of action. Listen to me. He is preying on lazy Christianity. He is hoping we will come to church on Sunday and say amen and come to the conference and applaud and have a great time. What he does not want is someone who rises up on Monday through Saturday and stands as the gatekeeper of her home. He wants us lazy and indifferent and apathetic, not picking up the armor of God and standing firm against his schemes. He doesn't care if you say amen to the message. He wants to make sure you don't go home and live the thing day after day.
Hey, everybody. Come on in. Come on in. It is the Kingdom Code podcast. And I am your hostess with the absolute mostest, Dolores, the pastor's daughter. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome in.
She didn't just find out that he was a scoundrel. She knew he was a scoundrel. Because sometimes God gives us knowledge, but that knowledge doesn't have to be acted on the moment we receive it. This is all out of order because I was supposed to give you steps, but I'm going to tell you right now. She knew who he was a long time before this moment. But just because she knew didn't mean that she had to act on it. And just because she knew didn't mean that she had to ignore it. Sometimes the most powerful gift you can give yourself as it relates to knowing what you know is recognizing the timing in which you release what you know. Timing is everything.
Timing is everything. Doesn't that sound like discernment, y'all? Doesn't it sound like exactly what we have been talking about? I want us to really just kind of like have a chill live stream today. I'm going to talk about discernment, core values, principles, and rules. And we're going to be reading from Yearn to Discern by R.L. Maco. It's the same book that we've been reading from, right? But today I want us to take it a little bit slower, right? Like, let's just bring it down a little bit. And let's really digest what we talk about today. Like, because this is really going to get down to the core of who we are, right? Like, what are your core values? What are your principles that you live by? What rules do you stand on? Because that gives us a really good glimpse into who we are as individuals, right? Sometimes we really don't know what we stand on. Like, okay, like, what is it? What are my core values? Like, how you've heard the old saying that if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything, right? Well, how about a lot of us have been falling for anything because we have not been standing on any type of morals, any type of core values, principles that we live by, rules that we live by. We've never actually taken an internal look at that. And so that's what we're going to do today. So come on in, everybody. Come on in. I am so glad that you are here to the Kingdom Code podcast. I am your host, Dolores, the pastor's daughter. As soon as you get in, let's go ahead and hit the like button, hit the share button. Just tell a girlfriend to tell a girlfriend, hey, friend, let's listen in and let's talk about discernment. Let's get deep in it, right? Like, let's become discerning women. So tell a friend to get on in here. Hey y'all, what is going on? This is the Kingdom Code Podcast. I am your host, Dolores, the pastor's daughter. I am so glad that you are here. We are going to dive right back into this book. Hold on, you guys. I have to sneeze. Excuse me. Like right when I started talking, I had to sneeze. Excuse me, y'all. So anyway, yes, look, we have been digging deep into discernment, right? We have learned a lot. We have learned the core, like the core meaning of the word, the root of the word, where it comes from, what it is not, right? We've learned that discernment is our superpower. So today we are going to talk about discernment still, right? But the core values, the principles, and the rules that really like guide our lives, right? Guide our decision making. So let's get into it. Can everybody hear me? If you don't mind, just giving me a thumbs up in the chat. Let me know you can hear me just fine. And let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 5, Discernment, Core Values, Principles, and Rules. The reality of life is that we all have certain characteristics, habits, mannerisms, prejudices, and opinions that we carry around with us on a daily basis. That's why whenever someone says to me, I'm not prejudiced or I don't discriminate against anyone, it always gives me cause to pause for a second or two. Hearing those words, I have to decide whether I'm going to respond to the statement or simply acknowledge that acknowledge it and let the topic go. My chosen response or lack thereof is one of discernment because I will need to make a judgment call on what to do with such information. And clearly, my decision will be based upon the particular person I'm conversing with, as well as the context of the conversation. But know this, no matter the person, context, or why the statement was made, the person making the statement is really conveying to me part of their belief system or core values. Okay, are we tracking so far? And we're still getting messages. We are analyzing people, places, and things, right? And not for the objective of judging anyone in any harsh way, right? But making a judgment call on whether we need to proceed with that person, like we've talked about this stuff, you guys, right? So, what are core values? Core values make up the belief system, right? Make up the belief system and guiding principles you live by. Okay? So those are your core values. They make up your belief system and the guiding principles you live by. You probably already have certain values or principles and beliefs you live by without actually calling them core values. Okay? So more than likely, we all have these core values, but we just didn't necessarily call them that, right? But it makes up our belief system and the guiding principles we live by, okay? These principles and beliefs are what shape your behavior and thought process. They also guide the decisions you make in life. Having core values is an essential framework that should be used as a backdrop for discernment. Okay? So your core values, they factor into discernment. They are a part of how you make your decisions, okay? And here it asks why, okay? Because if you stand on certain principles, you will have a sound basis upon which to make decisions that are appropriate for you and yours. Okay? If you have certain principles that you stand on, right, you will have a sound decision basis upon which you make decisions that are appropriate for you and yours. But please understand that core values, just like any other personal beliefs, can be used to justify wrongdoing when we haven't taken time to analyze why we have such beliefs and how we actually use them on a daily basis. Why is this this is why self-reflection in life is key. Okay? So just because they were your core values don't necessarily mean that you standing on these principles are not going to cause other people harm. And so if you are a discerning individual, right, then you are thinking about those things when you make your decision, even based on your core values. Okay. And we're going to, go through a list of core values in just a minute. So let's keep going. It is up to you to make a conscious effort to take an inventory of what your current beliefs are, where they come from or where they came from, and what, if any, changes to this belief system you need to make. Okay? You need to make a conscious effort here, right? To take an inventory of what your current beliefs are. Just because they're your beliefs do not mean that they are not toxic and harmful. Okay? You need to understand where they came from and what, if any, changes to this belief system you need to make. Right? It's no big deal here, You could totally make these changes once you just take a look, have some self-reflection here. Okay? There's no harm in that. But there can be harm in us not taking a look at our core beliefs and what we currently stand on to, check and see if it's toxic. Now, getting back to the statements, I'm not prejudiced or I don't discriminate against anyone. They are wonderful beliefs, but both statements are downright hard to believe. Right? I agree. Oftentimes, when we think of prejudice and discrimination, we think in terms of race, color, gender, or sexual orientation. But quite frankly, the ways in which we constantly discriminate against individuals are done so in ways not necessarily connected to race, color, gender, or sexual orientation. Many times, we don't even realize we're discriminating against someone, but we are. Or better yet, we justify our discriminatory behavior and pat ourselves on the back for our ingenuity in masking our actions as anything but discrimination or prejudice. Okay? So just because you put a justification on your behavior does not make it right. Does not make it a discerning behavior, right? There are several categories of people that come to mind on the topic of discrimination: age, employment status, social status, familial status, and physical appearance. We may act out our prejudice by moving our seat, refusing to acknowledge someone, or walking in the opposite direction of someone who we don't know and have not determined we don't know. Oh gosh, hold on. I think I read that all wrong, honey. Okay. We may act out our prejudice by moving our seat, refusing to acknowledge someone, or walking in the opposite direction of someone who we don't know and have determined we don't want to know on the basis of their size or appearance. Okay? When we make such decisions to move or somehow indicate our disdain for someone based upon these shallow reasons, rest assured that your decisions are rooted in prejudice, not discernment. Okay? Let's keep going. Nothing in those types of decisions or judgments seek to elevate or uplift anyone, including yourself. The only purpose is to condemn, judge, or separate. And although our actions may not be punishable by law, that does not mean the behavior is not discriminatory in nature. But alas, if you dare to think about what you did and why you did it, it is. Okay. Sometimes we don't want to analyze our behavior because we don't want to admit we were wrong. We don't want to admit that we made decisions that were not discerning decisions. They were just downright nasty for some reason. But I still say here, in some cases, you may be protecting yourself, right? By looking at a certain situation or a certain someone and, making a judgment based off their looks. So again, right, this is a situation where you would have to use your discernment to know, like, where are you coming from with your thoughts? Check in with yourself. You know, is this based on what I perceive to be a true threat or a situation that I need to avoid, or am I just being nasty? Let's keep reading. I'm not saying that we can't aspire to be less prejudiced or limit our prejudice to rational judgment calls that serve to protect us rather than to hurt or judge others, because that is exactly what we should do. See, this is exactly what I just said, right? Because there's a line here. And unless you are doing some internal reflection, then you're not really even checking with yourself to know where your thoughts are coming from. And that could be harmful to people. Let's keep reading. But in order to do that, we must be honest with ourselves and face the fact that none of us are blameless in our walk of life. At some point or another, we will have passed judgment or discriminated against someone and somehow justify our decision to others or to anyone who we trust enough to listen. And the fact of the matter is, this is learned behavior. Oh, wow. This is learned behavior. Suffice it to say, it took a long time for us to accumulate this type of baggage we carry around with us, and it's safe to say that it takes a while for us to undo all the damage done from carrying such baggage. Our constant rush to judgment is indeed invisible baggage that weighs us down in countless ways. Wow. And since we probably started carrying this baggage from an early age, we are immune to how heavy it has become over the years. Wow. So even think about it like this, in the way that R.L. Maco is putting it in this book, is that this baggage, when we really think about it, when we really do some self-reflection, we'll realize that this is heavy to even us, right? It's heavy for us to carry these prejudices and these judgments that aren't backed by discernment, and we're just carrying around learned behavior. And then most times what's sad is that we've already acknowledged that it's toxic, but we still carry around the same behavior that maybe we grew up with, we grew up seeing. And if we would just acknowledge it and let it go, then we would be lightening our own load, as well as treating the next person with dignity and respect. Right? Like, think about that. That's like, that's something to sit with for a minute, is that, man, like, I'm carrying a lot of this baggage and I really don't even have to. Like, the weight of my own foolishness, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's the weight of my own prejudices that aren't backed by discernment, you know? That's just not, I don't want to carry that around. Okay, let me keep reading. Let's face it, making changes in life is difficult. Making changes requires discipline, determination, and persistence in order for us to see the necessary changes actually come to fruition. Okay, so she acknowledges making changes is difficult, right? It's going to take some work. But this is why learning to discern in the face of establishing core values and using them consciously will help you make the changes you need to make. Again, discernment is what lightens that load for you, right? It lightens the load and it makes it easier to make the changes that you need to make, because you want your decisions to be discerning decisions. That's what you want for your life now. Let me see. I don't know why this is doing this. Hold on, y'all. I'm trying to change it where you can see my avatar as well. And I'm not understanding why it's not showing. Hold on, let me make sure y'all can still hear me good. You should be able to.
Of God and stand
And persistence. Okay, so y'all can hear me just fine. But I was wanting my avatar to show up and it's just not showing up. Let me throw out this this copyright disclaimer really quick, you guys, okay? I think it's still in here. This this restream is acting really weird for me today. So I don't really know why though. But let's listen to this, okay? Let's listen to this.
She didn't just find out that he was a scoundrel. She knew he was a scoundrel. Because sometimes God gives us knowledge, but that knowledge doesn't have to be acted on the moment we receive it. This is all out of order because I was supposed to give you steps, but I'm going to tell you right now. She knew who he was a long time before this moment. But just because she knew didn't mean that she had to act on it. And just because she knew didn't mean that she had to ignore it. Sometimes the most powerful gift you can give yourself as it relates to knowing what you know is recognizing the timing in which you release what you know. Timing is everything.
Wow. She said knowledge doesn't have to be acted on just because you know it, right? But it also doesn't have to be ignored. And discernment is realizing that there are times when you have to hold what you got, you know, until it is safe to make a move, until it's safe to speak up, until God gives you like that, you know, that comfort in knowing that this is your time. That's what I'm realizing now, even in my own life, that this is my time. And that even though I had discerned many things over the years, that the timing is now to convey this message. It's time to step out boldly. And I know that it's not just a word for me, right? That is a word for some of you as well. That you've known for a while that maybe it was time for you to walk away. but the time wasn't right then. It just wasn't right then. But you needed to know what you knew. You needed to see what you saw so that when the time came, you had all of that knowledge that you didn't act on in the moment, but you had to just file it away. Don't ignore it either now. But sometimes you need to just file it away until the time presents itself. And for a lot of us, the time is now. So let me keep reading. I just went off topic there. And I still forgot to pull up my I don't even have my see, this thing is really just all right. Let me just keep going, y'all. Okay. Anyway, this is covered by the Copyright Act of what is it, 1776 or something like that. Y'all know what I mean. Okay. Learning to discern properly also requires a level of discipline in order for you to consistently make appropriate decisions. Okay, so that's another thing we realize we have to have discipline. You will have to fight multiple urges, like old habits, emotions, and so many elements that are designed to keep you off track. Right? Think about that. Think about still having to fight like that old way, that old way of like maybe you was someone who just popped off real quick, like you go 0 to 100 real quick. And you have to have that discipline to constantly like keep yourself in check. That old way of doing stuff, that old way of popping off and going off and cussing somebody out and acting a fool, like, no. That old way is over. That is no longer you because you don't make decisions based off of this hot head of emotions. You have discernment, which means that sometimes you got to know something, but act like you don't know until the time is right. I keep getting off on some other stuff. I think that's for somebody. Okay? Take it if it resonates with you. Therefore, because you will have to fight several battlefronts, you should start with a foundation or strategy you can use before, during, and after you are confronted with all types of situations. Right? You need to already have a plan. Because your plan is based on your foundation, right? So your plan is saying, hey, like, I'm going to step back. Like, I recognize that this situation is pulling on my emotions right now, right? But I have discipline. And I know that I can't pop off like I used to pop off. I'm going to have to take a breather. I'm going to have to take a deep breath, step back from the situation, and analyze the situation. If you have a strategy, it will set the stage for you to begin discerning as you make important decisions. A great place to start is by establishing core values. Okay? Establish core values for yourself. The bottom line is, it's time for you to develop your own belief system instead of living in a belief system that was fed to you. Okay? Look, y'all, like, it's simply just time. You're not standing on those same toxic core values that you had growing up. Right? Like, yeah, one of your core values may be family. But a toxic core value is what family over everything, like where you willing to go to prison and do all kind of stupid stuff because it's like that's your family. Right? But when you have your core values, right? And you have discipline and you recognize that, hey, I need to step back and discern this situation. My family is toxic to me. So maybe Me standing on this one core value is actually toxic to me right now. Okay, but let's keep going. The bottom line is it's time for you to develop your own belief system instead of living on the belief system that was fed to you. Now, if you decide that you've done this analysis, right? And the core values that you grew up with are like they're sound, right? Like they're good. And you still want to stand on them. They don't hurt anybody. They're discerning. They are actually good core values. And that's great, right? That's great. But you still need to do the analysis. And then once you do the analysis, right, then those core values become you. They become who you are, not just who you were trained to be. You know them and you believe in them because you've done the internal analysis to know that those are the core values that you still want to stand on. It's time to build your own solid foundation of core values. Okay? Thank you. Thank you so much. I find this topic to be interesting too. And thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Okay, so here it says the list of core values is plentiful. You can find hundreds of core values on the internet or in books devoted to professional development. On a professional level, many organizations define their core values and use them to constantly evaluate their mission effectiveness. Okay? Y'all tracking so far? This is how it's done on a professional level. Right? So even professional organizations have core values. On a personal level, your parents probably had a set of core values they learned from their parents and then passed them down to you during your upbringing. Okay? As life goes on and we become adults, we tend to hang on to the core values we were exposed to at home, in school, from friends, through secondary education, through our religious beliefs, and perhaps through various life experiences. Okay? So we realize that our core values that we have, if we have not established our own core values, right? Then the core values we have come from our upbringing, our schools, from our friends, from high school, from church or whatever religious organization you were part of or the lack thereof, right? And then the life experiences that you've had. So that's what has shaped your core values to this point. Okay? We then incorporate these core values into our adult lives at home, at work, with friends, family, and any relationships we form. We generally hold on to these values seamlessly as we age without seriously questioning ourselves as to how we got here. Right? We simply just hold on to them because that's just the core values we just had growing up. And we never really take a look at it. Like, let me just analyze what my core values are here, Are your core values currently serving you? Are they benefiting you in life? And if not, then it's time to really look at what matters to you. Or maybe you just really didn't have any core values of, substance. Let me keep reading. Whether or not we stick to these inherited core values depends on the person, right? So that's what I just said. You may still hold on to them. So it's really not going to do you any harm to take a look at them, right? If we do stick to them, the consistency in which we adhere to them depends upon the nature of each of the relationships we form and develop throughout life. For example, falling in love tends to be a situation where not only will we dispense with some of our core value moment, right? Remember I told y'all this? That is when we throw our discernment out of the window. When it comes to our relationships with people, right? Especially our romantic relationships. We just totally throw discernment out of the window. We can see all kinds of red flags, y'all, and still proceed when we know good and well, that person is no good for us, right? So it says here, for example, falling in love tends to be a situation where not only will we dispense with some of our core values in the moment, but we may even let a core value to go for good as long as the love grows stronger. Y'all, think about that. Depending on who you're in love with, this may be a good thing or a bad thing. Okay? Depending on who you in love with, yeah. Okay. Because we have seen some toxic Bonnie and Clyde type relationships going on, right? And you just got to say, like, what are their core values, Like, they could have totally thrown out core values, or they took on some toxic ones from who they were with. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes to discernment, we tend to throw it completely out of the window when we fall in love, or when, you know what I'm saying, quote unquote, fall in love, right? However, if you never take the time to understand what your values are and why you believe in them, you may be throwing away certain core values at a time when you need them the most. Okay? You might be throwing them out. And that's exactly what you need, okay? Therefore, knowing what you truly stand for and why you've taken such a stand will stop you from tossing your principles and values aside when you really need them to guide you through important situations. Y'all, how many times have we seen this happen? When it's like you see like a friend of yours and you're just like, you would have never done this, you would have never behaved this way. But now that you're with so and so, you've totally thrown your principles out of the window. You're doing things that are, harmful to yourself. And like, I know you guys have seen or have friends like that. Like, I feel like we all have. We probably were friends like that, Some of us are friends like that right now. Where it's like our friends are looking at us and they're like, girl, this is not you. Like, ever since you started talking to that person, you have been toxic. You have been harming yourself. You haven't been taking care of yourself. You're missing time at work. You're being mean to people. Like, you've had that girlfriend or two, right? And that's when we tend to like totally throw our principles out of the window. And so it behooves us, right? To do some analysis, right? And really be honest about who we are and who we're with. You may love them, but you may not need to be with them, or you may not need to hang with them. You might need to love that person from a distance. Okay? Let's keep going. Since for most of us, the core values we're following were not established by way of a list we sat down and compiled ourselves. It's high time that we actually sit down and create a list of core values we stand by and are committed to upholding. Okay? So she says to help you with developing an appropriate list of core values by yourself, this book lists 50 of the most widely used core values. Oh, you guys, we're going to look into some core values here, okay? And then she says, I then identified 10 core values that many of us have in common. From the list of 10 commonly shared core values, I highlighted 5 core values to discuss in detail. Finally, I discussed 2 crucial core values that I believe everyone should uphold. At the conclusion of these discussions, I strike at the heart of why certain core values are so important to the topic of discernment. Does that make sense? I hope I read that right. Okay. So she's going to give us a list of 50. Okay, let me just paraphrase, right? We're getting a list of 50 core values to go through, right? And then she says she's identified 10 core values that many people have in common, okay? And then from that 10, she highlighted 5 core values to discuss in detail. Okay, so she's going to go into more detail about those core values. And then she says, finally, she discusses 2 crucial core values that everybody should have and uphold. Okay, so let's get into it, y'all. Let's get into it. Okay, I know you probably can't see this. And there's like, let me see if there's a way for me to blow it up. I'm trying to make it bigger. Let me see. Okay, and see what the list is. 5 widely used core values. Okay, let me see. I think we could see most of them. Okay, so the first one is family, integrity. I'm going down, okay? Fairness, justice, love, loyalty, respect, spiritual, peace, truth, commitment, understanding, honesty, accountability, trust, adaptability, ambition, consistency, justice, courage, determination, gratitude, growth, happiness, humility, hope, integrity, kindness, maturity, persistence, tradition, wisdom, wealth, success, thankful, giving, service, selfless, responsibility, purpose, tolerance, sincerity, motivation, honor, equality, discipline, community, dignity, health, and compassion. Y'all, any of those sound like you? Like this? Okay, so these are the ones that she said are the 10 most commonly used, right? Or commonly shared. My bad, not used. 10 commonly shared core values. And family, loyalty, truth, trust, respect, wisdom, love, success, compassion, and happiness. What do y'all think about those? Does that sound like the 10 core values that you would have or that you have? Yeah. So you say yes, definitely discipline, compassion, and responsibility speaks to you. Yeah. Yeah, me too. Respect is a big one for me. Love, loyalty, right? Family. Like, yeah, a lot of these people do share. And then the top 5, these are the ones that she's going to go into more detail about. That's family, love, respect, happiness, and success. So what y'all think about that? Those are the 50 most widely used core values, the 10 shared core values, and the top 5 core values. I can see definitely the top 5, I think most people definitely have. Or yeah, Yeah, I would agree. Family, love, respect, happiness, and success. Because it's like, who doesn't really like want that? Like, you know what I'm saying? So I would have to agree with that, you guys. Okay, let me go to the next page here. Let me see. Oops. Okay, so she's gonna go into more detail about the core values. And let's read the family one, and then I'll probably let y'all go, and then we'll come back. Yeah, because we're already like 46 minutes in. So let's read on. Okay. Okay, so number one core value is family, okay? So she says here, the first core value I choose to lead with is the core value of family. Right? I think that's like probably the most common one, right? Like the most common. And then and then she said, I choose to discuss family first because family is the first core value we are exposed to and the one that has the biggest effect upon our lives, right? I would agree. Okay. Whether you're born into a family steeped in rich traditions or you've just reached the age of 45 and are still searching for the birth parents who gave you away, or even if you grew up in foster care, that initial family environment we are raised in shapes the lens through which we see the world, right? So, however we came into this world is like our initial, you know, our initial like shaping, it's the initial thing that shaped us. Okay. So the family structure you're born and raised in is the environment that sets the foundation for your belief system. Okay. So your belief system first got started by your family, right? However, that family was set up, or even the lack thereof, in some of our cases. Okay. Your concept of family and how important you view family will determine so much in your life. This book cannot possibly discuss all the varied dynamics and assorted factors found in different family structures around the world because the variations are countless, right? And we're seeing that change even more, as we progress in people like finding their identity and what they define as family, right? So we're seeing the kind of like the familial dynamics, we're seeing that continue to change over time. Okay, still continuing to change. But we will explore the ways in which family can serve to uplift or hinder your progress, depending upon how you interpret family and how you allow family to function in your life. Now, notice here that she capitalized you. Okay, so I'm going to read it again. But we will explore the ways in which family can serve to uplift or hinder your progress, depending upon how you interpret family and how you allow family to function in your life. Okay? So this is how this serves you is going to depend on you. This is very individualistic, depending on your family structure and how you view family. Right? I have a different, I don't know, everybody has different views, but I like my family viewpoint is, I don't know, it's a bit weird ever since, the family pretty much broke up over my father's spiritual abuse, so I have like a different viewpoint of family. And because I didn't grow up around my family, like extended family, I grew up in Germany around just my immediate family. And so my viewpoint of like extended family is even more different because I really don't even like view them, like some of them, I don't even really view them as family because it's like, I didn't even know you. And, I don't know that I want to know you, like that for some of them. So I don't know, like I can see how I can totally see how this factors in, because it's like, not only does it depend on your family dynamics, right? But it also depends on how you interpret your family dynamics as well. So that makes this kind of like a real complicated thing, I think, you know? But let's keep going. Whenever I begin a discussion about family and the role it plays in one's life, no matter what the context, I always give my audience a disclaimer. That is, I always state the following. Okay, so this is her disclaimer. My concept of family may not be the norm and may even be considered warped by some standards. I am not here to diminish the level of importance family plays in your life. I am just trying to understand how you view family and what role that view plays in your life currently. Once you understand your family dynamic, your personal view of family, and how that dynamic and view of family affects the decisions you make in life, you will begin to pay closer attention to how family has and continues to impact you, your goals, and your path in life. Okay? It is only when you understand this impact that you will decide what changes and boundaries you must implement with certain family members. Sometimes the boundaries will need to be established in order to ensure that you're not led astray for the sake of family. Okay? Y'all hearing that? Because we have to admit that sometimes our family is not good for us. Okay? So you have to evaluate how important is the core value of family in your mind, even if the situation is toxic, right? You have to evaluate that. Overall, you need to understand how you have interpreted family in the past and how you will interpret family going forward. Okay? So that's her disclaimer. Okay? So she admits that, her family views may be warped, but, she understands that, it's more important to some than it is others, and that, everybody has their different viewpoints, and different experiences and all of that. So, we take that into consideration. So there's no judgment in how you view, but it's a good thing to take that, to do the work, to look at, how you view things, your family, how much weight are different core values in your life. What are your core values? You see what I'm saying? Okay. Those statements tend to speak my audience's interest, because now they really want to know how my view of family may be warped and how family can lead someone astray. I know I want to know, right? I want to know too. As the discussion progresses, they begin to think about family relationships in their lives and perhaps begin truly reflecting on these relationships for the very first time. Wow, can you imagine that? That some of us never really reflected on our relationships. We just went solely on this principle of family over everything, right? For me, I learned at an early age how to define and view family in a way that would not limit me or somehow overshadow or interfere with my dreams. Now, some people hearing this information will wonder, how can family get in the way of your dreams? My answer has been and will always be the same. Family, or anyone for that matter, can only hinder your life and your progress in life if you allow them to do so. Just like friends, co-workers, and significant others, family members come with their own set of problems and issues that show up when they come to you. Okay? Sometimes we have to realize that, look, that's just That's who that person is, and we just have to accept that and part ways, or put up boundaries to where we don't get caught up in, in toxic behaviors or toxic situations, right? The major difference between family and anyone else you interact with in life is the fact that you don't have the luxury of choosing the family you are born into, or those you are related to by blood, or even those who married into your family. Unfortunately, this difference is often the way family can act as a stronghold to your detriment. Okay? Or did y'all get that? This difference, the fact that they are family, right, is often the way family can act as a stronghold to your detriment. If you fail to recognize when certain family members use the high value you place, they use the high value you place on family as a way to benefit themselves at your expense, you are headed for major setbacks without even knowing it. Because none of us want to believe that we have family members that will take advantage of this core value that we have, right? That we may blindly be following this core value of, I'll do anything for my family, right? But we have toxic family members that will absolutely walk all over us to get what they want, to benefit themselves. And they don't hold family in high regard like we do, right? So it's up to us to put up those boundaries and protect ourselves, even from the people we call family. This tends to happen to people who believe that nothing is more important than family, right? That's what I just told you guys. A person who wholeheartedly believes in this statement and is dedicated to family without conditions or boundaries will always place family ahead of their own needs, no matter what the situation. Right? Sometimes we'll do it and it's just because they're family. Even when all the signs are there and we know that is not a good idea, right? It may not be a good idea to lend money to your cousin when you know that you need it back in 3 days, and you know your cousin don't pay you back because he hadn't paid you back the last few times that you let him borrow money. But this time you really need it back. But you already know that your cousin has a track record. So then you have to ask yourself, am I going to give this money just because this person is my family? Or am I going to use my discernment in knowing that, hey, first of all, I don't even have the money to give because I got a deadline, right? And I need it in 3 days. And I know if I let this person borrow it, I'm not going to see it again. Right? And some of us may even still give the money, right? And then allow that relationship to build up animosity, hatred, disdain, and now you can actually develop a hatred for your cousin. But it will also be where you would have to take accountability for your part because you knew that this person was this way, right? And just because they were your family member doesn't mean that you should throw your discernment out of the window. But that's what we tend to do when it comes to these really close relationships or romantic relationships, okay? Such persons generally suffer in silence and feel a sense of selflessness because they sacrifice for the sake of family, right? So you over there, you suffering in silence. And you are expecting people to do for you what you would do for them, which is because they're family. Not everybody holds family as in high regard or as one of their core values. So you have to give it its proper way, its proper, put it in its proper context. Okay? But always use discernment. Understand that there is nothing wrong with making sacrifices for your family at various times in your life. In fact, most of us do it, especially for our children, spouses, parents, and other family members who in our lives who we love, right? The family members in our lives who we love. However, when these sacrifices are made in the absence of discernment, the disposition can and oftentimes leave you vulnerable to being taken advantage of consistently. Some of us right now has that family member that consistently takes advantage of us. Because we hold family in high regard, we do anything for them. But we know that they're taking advantage of us. And we over there like we're suffering in silence. Building resentment, building a disdain, building hatred for our family members. Without even really taking accountability and taking a look inside to say, hey, like, how am I contributing to my own pain here? And not only that, but how can I change so that I protect myself, but I also protect the relationship that I hold dear, right? Because if you really hold the relationship, even with your family members, in high regard, right, then you wouldn't even allow it to get to a level of being taken advantage of. Because it's important to you to protect the relationship. And you know that the behaviors on either side can harm the relationship. Therefore, boundaries need to be in place. Discernment needs to happen consistently. Okay, nice, big-hearted people are the victims of this scam perpetuated by selfish family members. Such family members will seize upon your sentimental attachment to family and your unyielding duty to assist family members in need at all times. The result may be that you are constantly placing others' needs before your own, to the point that you will not fulfill your goals. If this continues to happen, eventually you will harbor resentment and bitterness that will eat away at you until you either finally say no to the family members, sever the familial relationship, or until the family member betrays you in a way you didn't see coming due to your limitless obligation to your family. If you care about the relationship, then you'll have boundaries. It's not that if I care about the relationship, I shouldn't have boundaries, or boundaries are somehow damaging the relationship. Boundaries also protect the sanctity of the relationship. I cannot continue being your friend. I cannot continue being this loyal, dedicated family member and continue to be walked upon, especially when I know that you are deliberately taking advantage of me. And we have family members who do that. And we are doing ourselves a disservice when we will not admit that, acknowledge that, and use discernment in how we need to move in that relationship. Sometimes we need to sever ties. But sometimes when we are discerning, right, then sometimes you establish these boundaries so that it doesn't even get to that point. It doesn't even get to that point. Let's keep reading. If that happens, you will have to come to terms with the fact that you created this exhaustive obligation that has been exploited for years with your express consent. How many times do we consent to being abused? Consent to being taken advantage of, exploited? And not that you say, yes, do this to me. No, not that type of consent. But your refusal to do anything different. To not see the signs, to just allow it to be. If you allow family to function this way in your life, the manner in which you've handled family will catch up to you eventually. And the end result will not be pretty. It won't be pretty. Okay? So we are going to stop there. Tomorrow, we are going to get started with this next section. Okay? First of all, the word didn't want to come out. Okay? The next section here is establishing boundaries from a position of discernment. Okay? So that's what we were just talking about here. Establishing boundaries from a position of discernment. Because remember, discernment serves to protect you. Discernment is the ultimate win-win situation. You cannot lose. You cannot lose when you use discernment. Okay? So how did you guys enjoy the beginning of chapter 5 so far, and the previous chapter readings of A Yearn to Discern by R.L. Maco, right? Excuse me, you guys. I totally didn't mean to do that. So how have you enjoyed this book reading? I'm telling you guys, I am really enjoying it. It's everything, right? It's giving me so much life, just even like refreshing myself on these lessons of discernment. Like I could read this book numerous times and probably even get more out of it, the more and more I read it. This is a good news book, and I am super excited to be reading it to you all and really digging deep into discernment. I feel like it's an untapped superpower, that we all have. And we are really leaving ourselves up to a lot of the deception that is in this world because we do not use our God-given gift of discernment. And so when I think of, a daily dose, Dolores' daily dose of discernment, it's a whole lot of D's, right? Some alliteration for you. But, I think about just giving you all just a bit of a nugget every single time that we talk about discernment, and that really building up your system, your immune system, to be immune to the deception, because when you have discernment, you cannot be deceived, right? So this is building up your immune system of your discernment, your discernment system. So that you can fight off, that disease. That's one way to put it, ain't it, y'all? Okay, child. So I'm gonna let you go, and I will be back. I don't know if I'm gonna be back later this evening. If I do, we're gonna do like a review of either like a Kendra G dating show or a crime show. I'm not sure yet, but y'all let me know what y'all want to do if I come back later on. Okay, I love you guys, and remember, you are important to me. I need you to survive. I love you guys. Bye-bye for now.
She didn't just find out that he was a scoundrel. She knew he was a scoundrel. Because sometimes God gives us knowledge, but that knowledge doesn't have to be acted on the moment we receive it. This is all out of order because I was supposed to give you steps, but I'm going to tell you right now. She knew who he was a long time before this moment. But just because she knew didn't mean that she had to act on it. And just because she knew didn't mean that she had to ignore it. Sometimes the most powerful gift you can give yourself as it relates to knowing what you know is recognizing the timing in which you release what you know. Timing is everything.